Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, open-hearted, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I am a living sanctuary for you. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, open-hearted, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I am a living sanctuary for you. One more time. Love, prepare me to be a sanctuary, open-hearted, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I am a living sanctuary for you.
That ties in beautifully with our guest speaker's talk today, which is why everyone loves St. Francis. And of course, our guest speaker today is Reverend Simon de Boyle. We'll be hearing from him more shortly. And apparently he's doing double duty today as both musician and speaker. So we're blessed, aren't we, today? Yes. And I have to say, I like this different orientation of the chairs and everything. It's kind of nice, isn't it? So, good morning, everybody, and again, welcome. If anybody is new here today, you should have received a little red heart. Did everybody? Is there anybody new here for the very first day? You are, and you got your red heart. Wonderful. Okay, we'll be talking more about that in a minute here. Okay, let's see. I think what's next is what we call the heart song. Are you ready?
Yep.
Such a joy to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Do you know Karen Drucker's music?
Yes.
She's amazing. I got to tell Cindy this, which is I once got to make her breakfast. Woo! I was at this big Unity music event, and she was one of the key speakers, and she was leading worship the next morning, and I was looking at her, and she looked really tired, and I knew that we'd all been up till 1 in the morning singing our hearts out. And I thought, she's just like me. She's got up last minute, hasn't had any breakfast, and she's about to do this big thing. So I went up and I said, "Are you hungry?" I didn't say, "Hey, I love your music, I play it all the time." I said, "Are you hungry?" And she said, "Yeah." So I made her a bagel with some cream cheese. I gave it to her in a little plate and she ate it. This is one of her songs. I wanted to reflect "You Are the Face of God" and me telling her how amazing she was at first thing on a Sunday morning when you've been up playing till 1 in the morning probably wasn't the right thing. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. So I invite you to look around the room. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. Amen.
All right. Well, what is the Red Heart Welcome? Those of us who've been here more than once know about this, but there might be people who are watching on live stream who haven't heard us say this before. We want everybody to know that they're welcome here, and we want you to know that you're welcome in the spirit of love at Unity of Bremerton. No matter where you are in your journey of faith, you're always welcomed here. We know that the world is a better place when we are willing to share our hearts. We give you this heart as a symbol of the steadfast spirit that lives within each one of us. And we ask you to carry this symbol as a member of the Red Heart Fellowship. Let it be a reminder that the love of God is always with you and to share your heart wherever you go. The Red Heart, as a symbol of fellowship in the world, can spread love one heart at a time. Let's start the movement here. And for those who are new to us, we have a variety of speakers, and so we invite you to check us out 2, 3, 5, half a dozen times and enjoy the diversity that happens here. And before I go any further, I want to give some thanks to people who help make Sundays happen, because a lot of work goes into it. I mean, just think, people arrived early and, set up the partitions that you see, set up the displays for the PowerPoint that happens, set up the chairs and so on. We want to thank the people that did the setup this morning. And by the way, if you can help later on when we have to put things away, that would be appreciated. We want to thank also our hospitality hosts, Laura, Mary Ellen, and Anne. And we want to thank our technology guru, which is Mark Swink. Thank you, Mark. Mark is responsible for audio visual, and he handles the live streaming that happens, and a lot of other things too. He's heavily involved with the setup arrangements that happen. So we really appreciate Mark. We appreciate Cindy Swink and all that she does as board chairman. Okay, I'm your platform assistant, Debbie Clay. And I'm not sure, who's our chaplain today? Well, I see some chaplains out there in the congregation, and I'm one of them. So anyway, if you would like a supportive prayer, that's available to you following the service. I'm available. Candace is a chaplain, Nora's a chaplain, and Marilyn is a chaplain. So lots of chaplains available for you. Wonderful. And we're so grateful for all the volunteers. Okay. Time to light the Christ candle. So this represents the Christ spirit within each one of us. So on the screen, we have our mission statement. Can we say this together, please? We are a welcoming community supporting our mutual quest for spiritual truth. And our invocation together: there is one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good omnipotence. Wonderful. Okay. We're going to be having a time of handshakes and hugs, we call it. Please remember, following the service is going to be a longer time of fellowship, so longer conversations can happen then. We're going to have a brief time of saying good morning. And if you hug, hug gently, okay?
House is up. I had so much I love Cardinal too. Yeah, I love Cardinal.
All that I am, all that I see, all that I've been and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing and I'm grateful for it all. All that I am, all that I see, all that I've been and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing and I'm grateful for it all. For it all. Na 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 na. Grateful for it all. Na 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 na. Grateful for it all. So I lift up my hands now and I open my heart, and my gratitude goes out to everything near and far. All that I am, all that I see, all that I've been and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing and I'm grateful for it all. All that I am, all that I see, all that I've been and all that I'll ever be is a blessing. It's so amazing and I'm grateful for it all. For it all. Na 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 na. Grateful for it all. Na 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 na. Grateful for it all.
Coming in here today, I was reminded of something a wonderful old Greek said. The only constant is change. I don't remember. I know it begins with an E, but it's one of those wonderful Greek names that goes on and on. You can find it on your little funny phones. Today's daily word is healing. I affirm wholeness and I am healed. The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell the story of a woman who believed she would be healed if she could touch the hem of Jesus' cloak. The woman, according to the story, had been ill for 12 years. Seeing her, Jesus said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." The woman's faith allowed wholeness to shine through the illness. She was healed. As an emanation of God, wholeness is my birthright. Repeat. As an emanation of God, wholeness is our birthright. Wholeness maintains my body, mind, and emotions in perfect balance. I release any belief in illness, lack, or limitation, and focus my faith on the wholeness that has always been present. I affirm wholeness, and I am healed. From Matthew 9, verse 22, Jesus turned, and seeing her, he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." And instantly the woman was made well. God bless us.
Thank you for reading that with so much prayer and clarity. This is a blessing from an island I used to live on. The blessing is 1,500 years old, but the song's a little bit more recent. I may look like a folk musician, but I'm a person who prays with music. And if you pray better by closing your eyes, do it and don't worry about singing the right words. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the child of peace to you. The moon and stars pour their healing light on you. La 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 la. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the child of peace to you. The moon and stars pour their healing light on you. La 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 la. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the child of peace to you. The moon and stars pour their healing light on you. La 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 la.
Beautiful. You said that the prayer itself is over 1,000 years old?
Yeah, it comes from the Celtic Christian tradition, and that tradition, yeah, it's probably 1,500 years old.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful merging of the traditional earth-based spirituality and the Christian message before the Roman Empire got hold of it.
Yeah. Those Celts were amazing people, weren't they?
I were doing okay.
Wonderful. Well, a few announcements, and many of them are in the bulletin. Just briefly, on Thursdays we have a Course in Miracles study group. Starts at 7 p.m. That's an open study group, so if you're interested, please attend and join us. We have a good time. Coming up on September 29th, Membership Sunday. This is an important Sunday to attend because, you know, we talk about important things. And, you know, well, we have a new minister on her way, right? We've got that to talk about. And I think there'll be some voting, yes? No voting, but I'm sure there'll be important announcements about, that you will want to hear about the future of this church and how we're doing now and so on. So please plan to attend September 29th, Membership Sunday. Okay. Another announcement, we're going to have a memorial for Mary Aitchison. I'm wondering, Mark, do we have a photo of her in your PowerPoint, Mary?
Not in this week's.
Okay, not in this week's.
On
Well,
Facebook. On Facebook.
on Facebook. That's right, on the e-blast message. But anyway, Mary was a long-standing member of this congregation, and many of you will remember her. Anyway, we're going to be having a memorial for her, officiated by Reverend Joanna Gabriel, and that will be on Saturday, October the 5th at the Miller Woodlawn Funeral and Memorial Park. Anyway, the details are in your bulletin, so please plan on attending that. Okay, so I think, and that's about all the announcements for today, I think. So, more music, I think.
I'm so delighted to be here, very delighted to be here, and I thought I should give you a tiny little summary of who I am and what I do and why I'm such good friends with Unity Church. Love Unity. So I'm an interspiritual, interfaith minister, and I trained for people who don't set foot in a church. And but I happened to, before I trained as an interfaith minister in New York, I used to live on the island of Iona, which is off the west coast of Scotland, and it's one of the most important places when it comes to the emergence of Christianity in the West. And I lived in a modern-day abbey there for 3 years, and I got steeped in Celtic Christianity. It just so happens I decided to train as a wooden boat builder, and I went to Port Townsend to do that. Yeah, because I got this sense that God wanted me to be a boat-building minister. Right? And I was like, okay, well, that kind of happened to know. It's happened once before. So I went to Port Townsend, and there at the Unity Church is a woman called Reverend Pam, and she is really keen on Celtic Christianity, and she heard that I was in town and that I sang this song called Deep Peace that made everybody cry. And she snaffled me into that congregation and asked me to come and join them. And for the last many years, for 4 years, I've been the music director at Unity of Port Townsend. I've learned a lot about the Unity tradition, and it's a really good match for my interfaith open attitude, and also because I'm so keen on prayer, which is what you guys have so much to teach the rest of Christianity. So that's who I am, and news got out to Cindy that I existed, and thank you for inviting me. So you know what they say? They say that Christianity started as a Jewish experience in Palestine, right? And then it moved over to Greece, and it became a philosophy. And then the Roman Empire got hold of it, and it became an institution. And then it moved north to Europe and became a culture. Jumped over to North America and became a big business. Big business.
Oh, amen.
So today I'm going to talk about St. Francis. So we're going back into Christianity as a culture about 800 years ago. This is the time in which St. Francis was around, and I'm going to talk about him today. But before I do that, I'd like to open with a prayer. Great Spirit, you are within each of us. You dwell within us just as you dwell in all things, places, and all beings. The entirety of creation is your body. Nearer are you than breathing, closer than our hands and feet. And ours are the eyes with which you look out with compassion on this world. Open our eyes that we may see others as you see them. Amen. So I'd like to do a time of meditation before we jump into St. Francis. So I invite you to close your eyes. St. Francis called the earth Mother Earth. He called it the mirror of God. He lived in a way that brought love and prayer into his every encounter. And in a very real way, the world becomes how we see it to be. The beauty and vision that we hold somehow births itself and becomes available to others. I invite you to drop down into your body, to still your mind a little. Notice your breath. The temperature of the air against your skin. And gravity holding you close to Mother Earth beneath your feet and on the chair. We walk around thinking that we are separate, but we are not. Our body is almost identical to our neighbor's body. And our body is made up of stardust, just like all of Mother Earth. St. Francis saw a basic goodness in the world. He witnessed love in those around him, and he midwifed healing and growth. When we see the beauty in the world, we can reflect it to others. When we notice the goodness in the heart of another, we can respond to that goodness, bringing it out. We live in an urban world with so many demands and distractions. It's important to slow down and feel our connectedness to all other things. But it's more than just calming our thoughts, it's also connecting. Rumi said, love is the bridge between you and everything else. And I ask you this week to slow down, become aware of where your body touches the rest of Mother Earth. And when you do that, it's natural that you will notice the love, goodness, and beauty all around you. Amen. I invite you to come back into the room. So today I'm not going to give you a detailed history of St. Francis. I want to talk about my sense of who he was as a spiritual person and what I learned from him and how he inspires me. So in summary, I love St. Francis because he's a beautiful expression of the Christ. And he was one of the main reasons I got over my prejudice towards Christianity. He was an example of the baby sitting right there in the bathwater. And what I really love about the way that he was he touched creation with intimacy and compassion. All beings were his brothers and sisters. The birds, the elements. It's a very earth-based spirituality that makes sense to me. The one place I really know that God exists is in the natural world. I mean, we all know that. But the reason I got to know him was because I saw a postcard once that said, the Prayer of St. Francis on. When I first moved to the Abbey, I didn't know very much about Christianity. And we had a little shop that sold things, and one of the things was the Prayer of St. Francis. And I bought it, and I looked at it, and I thought, this is perfect. So I set it to music. And I think you might have a slide of this. Do you have the words? It's called the Prayer of St. Francis. You just have to listen to me. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. Grant that I can see through my human pain and still feel loved. In the darkness, let light be found in there. I need light to find me here. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. Through my own pain and need, I will learn to understand. Melt our hatred, let love take root in our hearts. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. We all need to learn to forgive a few more hundred times. Reach through our sorrow, let it be joy. oh let it be joy. Gonna plug my guitar back in case it needs to charge. So that's how I got to know St. Francis, was through that song, which I later found out was not, that prayer was probably written many hundreds of years afterwards. So it probably wasn't written by St. Francis himself. He had a lot of writings, and they were in a very different style. But I love that prayer because it is very true to what he taught. St. Francis is an authentic, joyful, compassionate example of somebody who knows God. But he goes further than that. He's somebody who loves God. This is one of his prayers, Canticle 11. I would love more if that might be, but since my very heart is gone, nothing of mine is left to me. I've given all for love alone, that I may be entirely possessed by the beloved one. He was a troubadour, he was a poet, a singer, he was very much a lover of God. And if you don't understand that, if you think of him as an intellectual philosopher, you won't understand St. Francis at all. He didn't really care so much about right and wrong and shame and stuff like that. He really cared about acts of goodness and imitating this person, the Christ, who is our ticket to salvation and home. He was a very interesting man. Let me put my guitar down. So the other thing, before I tell you a few more of the facts around him, is he gave everything away and really embraced poverty, which is very different, very countercultural for us in the world of many, many things. And you won't understand St. Francis if you don't understand that poverty brought him great joy. You know, if you gave him something, he would give it away immediately. He would share it with the world. He called poverty Lady Poverty, and he adored her. So I wanted to give an example of trying to understand that. One thing I love to do is to play for people on their deathbeds. It brings me great joy, in a bit like the way living in poverty brought St. Francis joy. And it's not that I particularly am fascinated by death, but it is one of the things I was sent to do. I was sent to talk, to be with people, and to bring prayer. And it brings great joy to me when I get to do that work. And St. Francis was brought to teach us that the world of things is not where God lives. That when we are generous and we are fully open and when we fully love others, incredible miracles and healing will happen. And I think part of the reason that he goes on and on about Lady Poverty so much was because that was his joy, that was his path. And I think it is good to imitate that, but it's difficult for us in 2019 to understand that. So St. Francis had a French mother and an Italian father, and he was born in Italy in 1181. He was called the French one. That's what Francis means, Francesco. And he died when he was my age. Died when he was 44. And for 20 years of his life, he was a monk. He founded 3 orders, the monks, the nuns, and a tertiary order for people that didn't want to leave their homes and their lives and their families. That tertiary order currently has 350,000 members in it. He was I think he was the most successful grower of the monastic traditions. And his recipe was simple. Imitate Christ and live simply and respond with love. He did away with a lot of the monastic structure. So you've probably heard of St. Benedict and the Benedictine abbeys in the Christian tradition. The building I used to live in had been a Benedictine abbey. And they lived very separate from the people. And The whole day is taken up with chanting and prayers, very specific. St. Francis didn't do any of that. He wandered in the wilderness. He had a very barefoot attitude, you know, like barefoot doctors. It was a barefoot monk. He was among the people. He was among the poverty. How did this all happen? How did a spoiled playboy that liked fancy clothes and women and wanted to be a hero in the army, how did he become the most famous monk of all time? I'm fascinated by that transformation. I'm very fascinated by it. So I wanted to find a little quote, which is, supposedly his parents is, "Our son behaves more like a prince than a salesman. He behaves more, he thinks he's a little prince." He was quite an arrogant little guy, they say. So I think what happened to St. Francis was he went to war. He went and fought. And he got captured, and he was imprisoned, and he got very, very ill. And in that process, he had a spiritual transformation. You know, what happens when you get locked up for a year or two? You know, our prisons actually have so much faith going on inside them because the guys and girls are locked away. And the spirituality is actually very rich within prisons. And he came back after fighting in a war, after being a prisoner, after being really, really ill, and he didn't fit in anymore. And the fancy clothes, and the reputation, and the desire to be a knight kind of didn't do anything for him. And he started becoming more and more of a holy person. And then he ended up getting in conflict with his family. He was selling his dad's cloth. His dad was a cloth and clothing merchant in the marketplace in Assisi. And a beggar came up to him and asked him for alms. And he said he didn't have anything. And the beggar moved on, and he felt so wrong about this. He went and he sold all his dad's cloth, took all the money, and gave it to the beggar. The beggar must have been stoked. His dad, not so much. His dad beat him and locked him in the cellar. And after about 2 weeks, his mum snuck down there and let him out. And that was the start of him having massive conflict with his parents and their wealth, because he had this real desire to share everything that he owned. In the end, his father denounces him. The story behind that's really interesting. So St. Francis is beginning to be outcast, and he's wandering around, and he's wearing, still wearing his fancy clothes, and he goes into this ruined chapel, and he's praying, and it's all falling down. And on the wall is a crucifix. And the crucifix says to him, "Francis, Francis, rebuild my church, which, as you can see, is in ruins." I don't think that happens very often, these mystical experiences, and it had a really profound impact on him. So he looked around at this ruined church, and he went, "Yeah, this is falling apart." So he snuck back into his dad's house, took some more cloth, sold it, and bought materials to rebuild this chapel. His dad finds out and he's furious. And he brings them he gets the judge to arrest Francis, and they try him. And in that process, Francis strips off all his fancy clothes, is butt naked, and denounces his father, and his father says that he disowns him. And from that point on, he put on the brown beggar's robe, tied with some string, and wandered around for the next 5 years, praying and living a very simple life, owning nothing. So he has this transformation, this conflict with his dad, and then he has 5 years where he's wandering around pretty lost. And in that time, he doesn't know what to do. He's got this instruction about rebuilding churches, so he's constantly trying to rebuild physical buildings. He ends up scrubbing pots in monasteries. He walks around a lot. People don't like him. They remember that he's stripped off, naked in the middle of the town square, and that he wanders around and gives everything away, and he talks to the birds. A lot of people actually despise him, and they think he's a complete nutter. And he probably is. And you know what? I bet he's perfectly happy too. So he's done this for a long time, and people thought of him as the holy fool. He's weird and authentic. But the manner in which he relates to everything, the birds, the animals, the people, is really gentle and loving and joyous. And people start to notice him more, this strange guy that won't go away. And people notice that they like being around him, and he starts getting followers. And then there's a few of them all wandering around in their brown robes and string, and he ends up accidentally forming a little band of about 12 monks. And he has a friend who's this rich noblewoman called Claire, and she starts hanging around with him. And she's like, I want to do that too. And he says, well, do it. So she and a few women, they start wearing their own robes, and that's where the second order was formed. And it just took off over the next 20 years. The Pope finds out about this and isn't very pleased, summons Francis. Francis goes to Rome, manages to persuade the Pope that he is an authentic imitation of the man Jesus, and gets given the blessing, the papal blessing, which I think is amazing. So that's kind of what his story was. Simon's history of St. Francis, which leaves out so many details. Why I love St. Francis is he's the best example of praise I have ever seen. And especially for people that believe in positive prayer, he has so much to teach us. If you see basic goodness in life, the abundant healing, the vitality of the stars, if you see that, and you know it's in your own form, then you can share it with others. In a very real way, the world becomes what we see it to be. We know that. But do we really see the joy, the healing, the wonder? We live in such cynical times. We really need St. Francis. We really need him. I recently wrote this song. It's another St. Francis song. Oh, St. Francis is even on my guitar. There's a little icon there. He's on my guitar because I had to rebuild it, and he's covering up a big hole. But it really is an icon made by my friend. Yeah, I drove over my guitar in a moment of mindlessness, and you know the truck won. Anyway, that's another story. So there's a prayer of St. Francis is called Canticle of the Sun, or Canticle of the Creatures, or Brother Moon, Brother Sun, Sister Moon. And it's a really beautiful prayer, and I set it to music. Shall we try again with the bug? Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, I'll just play it a cappella. Most high, all powerful, precious God, no spoken word can hold your name. Praise be to you who births all life with all your creatures. Especially you, Sir, Brother Sun, who is the day and is your light, a beauty so true to you. There you are, there you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Sister Moon and the stars. bright, precious heaven, there you are. There you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Brother wind and the air, breath of spirit, there you are. There you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Sister water and gift of life, pure, essential, there you are. There you are. Praise be to you, my Lord, you are. Brother fire, friend through the night, strong and playful, there you are. There you are. Most high, all powerful, precious God, through Mother Earth we see your face. You who govern all of life, sustain and nurture all that is. With Sister Death, first and last breath, the key unlocking all we are. There we are. There we are. There we are. I think for Francis, God was really as close, as touching, as really present in every detail. And because of that, he had this alchemy, this healing. He was the first person that had the stigmata. In a very real way, the world becomes what we see it to be. And if we have a lens that includes the joy of the world, the blessedness, the healing, the incredible closeness and desire for God to be in and with us, then our world is much, much more beautiful. And when we see the world with beauty, we respond with beauty. We treat people with loving kindness and generosity and art and all sorts of ways of being that is naturally so alluring to everybody else. So I think St. Francis's alchemy was that there was something about the way he loved that was life-giving and healing. And I think he distilled into love a very vital power because he encanted it with praise. Apart from the charismatic Christians, I don't hear the Christian tradition talking about praise as a powerful, powerful, earth-shattering thing. It's become duty and aren't we horrible, isn't God great, and we should praise him. Why is it him, first of all? There is another aspect, which is when you are given love, you respond with love. When you see the beauty, you shine back that. And St. Francis does that. And he touches the world with a loving kindness that was infectious. My own sense is that praise is magically linked with birthing light and unlocking wonder. I think St. Francis would have been the person who responds like the little kid. You know, my nephew and niece, when they saw me, Uncle Simon, they just ran. They didn't think about who was watching, or, you know, like he just would go. He would just sell the cloth and rebuild it. And after a while, when it wasn't working, he stopped rebuilding physical buildings and started looking at worship and rebuilding it based on how we pray and the things that we do. And he was like, oh, rebuild my church. Francis, rebuild my church, which, as you can see, is in ruins. You know? We're quite far after, 1,000 years after the man Jesus was here. It had, the Jewish experience had become a Greek philosophy, was in the power of the institution of the Romans, and was now becoming a culture in Europe. It wasn't a spiritual experience anymore. And he helped to bring it back. So let me focus, because I don't want to keep you here all day. So I'm going to jump to the spiritual practices that are inspired by St. Francis that I do. Notice God's presence in all things. And care for creation. Don't just notice it, respond to it, interact with it. And specifically, St. Francis teaches us, like my Native American friends teach me, that nature is not a thing, it's a being. Brother wind, sister moon, Mother Earth. When you really see it as a loving being, you don't chuck your radioactive garbage into it. You don't over-consume. The second thing St. Francis was really big about was becoming a clean vessel and taking communion. He was, you know, he was probably smelly and wore these filthy robes, but he was very particular about cleanliness around communion, and that whole process of opening up your life so that the Christ consciousness can come through you, of being a channel, is central to his teachings. And if you don't take communion, which most people at Unity don't, I ask you, what are you doing to make space for that higher self? What ritual are you doing to set aside Simon and be a child of God? Communion is a fabulous way of doing that. It was the thing that St. Francis was really keen on. We don't have to do that if it's loaded for you. If it's loaded and it's been ruined by your upbringing, find something else. Like for me, singing the Prayer of St. Francis. That's one of the ways on a daily basis I open myself up to the love that is far bigger than I am. And the third thing, and this was the principal teaching of his monastic tradition, is imitate those who know God. Imitate those who know God. This is spiritual practice for dummies, easy, and it works. Imitate the Christ, imitate St. Francis, imitate those people in your life that have a beautiful prayer presence, or the Dalai Lama, or Oprah, or whoever it is. If we do that, then we'll get quite far. Thank you for listening.
I want to answer one of the questions you just put forth.
Yes.
I do one thing that some people might think is a little strange, but I go to work in Seattle Monday through Friday, and as I walk to and from work and take walks at lunchtime, I notice the trees, there's some big oaks, other kinds of trees, they're dropping their acorns in masses. I mean, masses of acorns. So much so they're all over the sidewalks and everything, and there's much more there than the squirrels in Seattle can eat. Truly. And so I have gotten into the habit of taking a little baggie with me, and I pick up some and I fill a baggie almost every day, and I bring it home, and I basically spread it on the lawn near my apartment, because the trees in my neighborhood, they're lovely, but they're not oaks, so they're not dropping acorns. But I spread out these acorns. You know, usually I do it at night. So first thing in the morning when they're doing their foraging, they find them. And I open my blinds and I look and I see them and they're so happy. They eat all those acorns, you know. But I mean, we could do things like that, right? We could contribute. We can maybe put out a little seed for the birds or whatever. Okay. All right, we're going to have a time of offertory, so I invite you to take your gift in your hand. And as you're preparing your tithes and love offerings today, think about how blessed you are. And as you're writing your check or giving your gift to, send your blessings out. Bless this congregation, bless this church, and bless the world. The world surely needs a blessing right now. So, and we are going to be singing this on the screen.
So blessed, I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am blessed.
Can I have an usher come forward with the offering? And Nora, will you come forward and represent the chaplains? And we're going to, as a congregation, bless the offering. The offering is on the screen, so let's say it together. Divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Thank you. All right. So we like to share good news when we have it to share. Does anybody have any good news? Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if you can.
I'm really moved to share this. I have a very strong affinity for St. Francis, a very personal one. 25 years ago, I figured it out. My son needed to go to high school, and we lived in Sacramento, California. And the schools were okay, but he was kind of a leader, and I was worried that he might be the leader of the gang instead of, you know. And I was cleaning houses, and I was cleaning the house of this lovely couple that had children, and one of her kids was the age of my son. And she said, "You're not even thinking about sending Evan to that neighborhood school." And I said, "Well, I'm thinking." And she said no. So I ended up deciding to send him to a school which was Catholic, with the Franciscan brothers as teachers. It was absolutely awesome. He got a wonderful, wonderful education. And she helped. She gave me extra hours and introduced me to people that needed help in various ways. And we made it. And it was very expensive. But the interesting thing is, their schools have to be in neighborhoods that are on the edge of being a little sketchy. Because they want the kids in the neighborhood to come and play with the hoops, the fields that's there. It's their neighborhood, and it's everybody's neighborhood. And I just always thought that was such a beautiful thing. And interestingly enough, when he was a freshman, my son went in the summer to Unity Village and decided he was going to run for president of International YOU, Youth of Unity, and he won. They took him to Europe. He went to more countries pretty much than I've been, and I've been around. Thereafter, some things happened, and he did not keep the job. He was in shame, and I totally concurred with everything that happened. But just thinking of him in that wonderful school, I did my part, and it just filled our lives. I did a lot of volunteering at the school, in the library, and whatever I could do. I did cooking. I did all kinds of stuff. And that Franciscan stuff is so dear to my heart. They really do, they really have it as far as community goes. The other thing I wanted to ask you, but I could ask you afterwards, is did you build boats in Port Johnson this last summer?
Not this last summer.
Okay, because a very dear friend of mine cooked for a group of gentlemen that came from all over the world.
Oh, nice.
And she was the cook. She lives here somewhere. And so I just was wondering if you might know her, because she's a dear, dear person, and they were very happy with her. But there's supposed to be a lot of people building boats in Port Johnson.
200 shipwrights.
Oh my goodness.
Well, thank you for telling us your story. We really appreciate it. And Nora, you're waving your hand. Do you have good news?
I always have good news. Most of you know I sub for the school district as a paraeducator. Before school started, my supervisor, I called and asked if I'd take a long-term job on Mondays and Fridays, covering for somebody at one of the schools that was filling in for the librarian who had surgery and wasn't due to come back until the second week in October. Well, the good news is that she's back at work tomorrow. The bad news is I lost almost 16 hours of work in that job this month, but when I was subbing at a different school, I found out that our pay was increased at the start of the year, so I found out that I'm making almost $2 an hour more than I was last school year, and I didn't even know it, so.
Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, and Cindy has something to say.
The benefits of being the board president. I always have something to say, but I have a few somethings to say today. First piece of good news is Simon has CDs on the back table available for purchase, so please check those out during fellowship time. Second, I've got a card for Reverend Joanna, with gratitude, since now that we're hiring our minister, we won't see Joanna quite as much, though she's carried us through the last 2.5 years, and I wanted to, for whoever was interested, sign the card. We'll give that to her on the day of the memorial for Mary. So it's over there on the table. Reverend Linda is arriving in the Bremerton area next weekend. Yep, she's packing up, saying her goodbyes. She's getting ready to hit the road, and she will be here the first Sunday of October. So very exciting times. Yep, very exciting times. Yeah, it's been a long time. Oh, it's St. Francis Day on the 6th of October. Well, see, there you go. How good is that? So we're thinking maybe we should do a potluck as a nice big welcome for the fellowship that day. So bring your best goodies. And we won't do a sign-up sheet. It seems to come together quite nicely, so let's just plan on that. And wanted to ask for a little bit of extra prayer support. The chaplains are already busy. I sent out an alert to our prayer warriors, but George and Lois are having some tough health challenges right now, so if you could include them with a little extra prayer support, I think they would really appreciate it. And that's it for now. Thank you much.
Thank you, Cindy. So it's time to stand up. We're going to sing our peace song and have our final prayer.
Yes, we are.
I'm going to jump in because my guitar's going to be at your neck.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be, with God as Creator, and we all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be a moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us,